Now, let me say something that might sting a little. You've been told that a small account can't become anything real, that if you don't have serious capital to start with, the market isn't for you, that the people making real money in trading started with real money. And here's the uncomfortable part. You might have started to believe it. Write in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I genuinely want to know who's on the other side of this. To support the channel for free, all I ask is that you subscribe and hit the like button before you leave. It costs you nothing, and it means everything. But what if that belief itself is exactly what's keeping you broke? What if the story you've accepted, that small money is destined to stay small, is not a financial fact, but a psychological trap that benefits the people who want you to stay on the sidelines? Because I've seen something that contradicts all of it, over and over again. And by the end of this video, you're going to see it too. The question isn't whether a small account can grow. The question is why so few people actually let it. By the way, if you're new here and you find yourself nodding along, this channel is built exactly for people like you. Hit subscribe. I put out videos like this every week, and I'd love to have you here for the next one. Here's what most people think the problem is with small accounts. They think the problem is the money, the number. They think if they just had more capital to start, $10,000 instead of $500, or $50,000 instead of $5,000, everything would click. The trades would work, the profits would compound, the account would grow. So they spend their time waiting, saving up, telling themselves they'll really start when they have enough. But here's what's actually happening. The problem was never the size of the account. The problem is the size of the process, or more accurately, the absence of one. Think about it this way. Imagine you handed someone who's never cooked before a $3,000 set of professional chef's knives. Does that make them a better cook? Of course not. The knives are neutral. The skill behind them is everything. Trading is identical. A larger account doesn't make you disciplined. It doesn't make you patient. It doesn't stop you from chasing trades when you're frustrated or closing positions too early when you're scared. If anything, it amplifies everything you haven't learned to control yet. The traders who blow up $50,000 accounts didn't lose money because the market beat them. They lost it because they never learned the lessons that a $500 account was trying to teach them. That's the reframe. A small account isn't a limitation. It's a classroom. And most people are failing the class not because they lack intelligence or drive, but because nobody told them what the curriculum actually was. And that's not your fault. The financial content you've consumed, the YouTube highlight reels, the Twitter screenshots of massive wins, the influencers showing off gains without ever showing losses, all of it was designed to sell you excitement, not build you a foundation. So let's actually build one. Let's start with the thing that actually matters first. And I promise it's not the thing you're expecting me to say. It's not strategy, it's not your entry, it's not your indicators or your chart patterns or your system. It's risk management. And before you roll your eyes because you've heard that before, stay with me, because I want to show you what it actually means in practice, not just as a concept. Risk management, in the simplest possible terms, means this. You decide in advance how much of your account you are willing to lose on any single trade. And that number is small. We're talking 1% to 2% of your total capital per trade. So if your account is $500, you're risking $5 to $10 per trade, not $100, not $200, not half the account because this setup looks perfect. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds tiny. That sounds like it'll take forever to build anything meaningful. And that's exactly the impatience that wipes out accounts. Here's what the math actually shows you. If you have a system that wins 60% of the time with a risk-to-reward ratio of 1 to 2, meaning for every dollar you risk, you aim to make 2, and you apply it consistently on a $500 account risking 2% per trade, your account doesn't stay at $500 for long. It grows, slowly at first, then faster. The reason is compounding, and compounding is the most misunderstood concept in all of personal finance, not just trading. Most people hear compounding and they think, okay, great, my profits earn more profits, which is technically true. But what they miss is the time dimension. Compounding is painfully slow at the beginning. It looks like nothing is happening. The account goes from 500 to 540, then to 580. It feels pointless. This is the exact moment most people give up, increase their risk out of frustration, and blow the account up. But here's what was actually happening under the surface. Every disciplined trade, whether it won or lost, was building something that no chart can show you. It was building the psychological architecture of a real trader. Because here's the truth that experienced traders know and nobody warns beginners about. The hardest thing about trading is not understanding the market. The hardest thing is managing yourself while you're in the market. Fear and greed are not abstract concepts. They are physical sensations. When a trade is moving against you and you're down $80 on a $500 account, something happens in your body. Your palms sweat, your chest tightens, and your brain, which is ancient and wired for survival, not markets, starts screaming at you to do something. Close it, cut the loss, don't let it get worse. And the equally dangerous flip side, when you're up $150 on a single trade, that same brain starts telling you that you're different, you're special, you figured it out, and maybe you should increase the size next time. This is not weakness, this is biology. And a small account is where you learn to work with that biology instead of being controlled by it. This is why the principle of scaling gradually is so important. Your mind needs to be trained at the same pace your account grows. If your account doubles but your psychology hasn't caught up, you'll feel the same fear and the same greed just at twice the dollar value and twice the damage when it goes wrong.
So, how does gradual scaling actually work in practice? You start with a manageable account and consistent small position sizes. As the account grows, say it goes from 500 to 700, you make a proportional adjustment to your trade size. Not a dramatic leap, a fraction of the growth. You're teaching your nervous system to handle slightly more exposure while keeping the emotional pressure within a range you can manage. When you hit $1,000, you adjust again. When you hit $2,000, again. Always proportional, always controlled, never letting the excitement of growth push you into a position your psychology isn't ready for. Now, let's talk about something that more traders should understand, but most approach incorrectly: prop firms. A prop firm, proprietary trading firm, is a company that gives disciplined, proven traders access to significant capital that isn't their own. We're talking accounts of $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 or more, in exchange for a share of the profits. And before you get excited, because I know that sounds like the shortcut you've been looking for, I need to be honest with you about what prop firms are and what they are not. Prop firms are not a lottery ticket. They are not a way to skip the process. They are actually the opposite. They are a tool that amplifies skill, which means they also amplify the absence of skill. The rules that prop firms impose, daily loss limits, maximum drawdowns, risk per trade caps, those rules exist precisely because the firms know what destroys accounts. They're not being restrictive for fun. They're filtering for the traders who have already internalized discipline on their own. The traders who can operate within a risk framework without being told to, because they've built that habit over months of trading their own small capital. If you try to use a prop firm as a shortcut before you've done that internal work, you'll fail the evaluation, lose the fee, and be right back where you started. Except now you're also a little more cynical and a little more broke. But if you arrive at a prop firm after genuinely mastering a small account, after you know your system, know your win rate, know your risk to reward, and know how you behave under emotional pressure, then the prop firm becomes a genuine lever. It lets you apply your proven skill to a capital base you couldn't have built yourself in the same time frame. That's a real advantage. The other pillar of scaling is reinvestment. When your account starts generating consistent profits, there's going to be a temptation to take everything out. And that temptation is understandable. You've worked hard for that. It feels like proof that you're doing something right. But here's where patience pays off more than almost anywhere else. If you reinvest a portion of your profits, not all, but a meaningful portion, you're accelerating the compounding process. You're giving your account more mass to work with. That $800 account that generates $50 in profits becomes an $850 account for the next month of trades. Doesn't sound like much, but do that consistently for a year and the trajectory changes in ways that are genuinely hard to visualize until you experience them. There's a simple strategy that many traders use. Withdraw a small safety portion, reinvest the rest. That way you're not just blindly leaving money in, you're securing some gain while still feeding the engine. If this is connecting with you, if you're recognizing yourself somewhere in what I'm describing, do me a favor and hit subscribe. This is exactly the kind of conversation I want to be having with you every week. And honestly, a like goes a long way in helping more people find this content.
There's a moment that every trader who eventually succeeds can point to. It's not the moment of their biggest win. It's not the day their account crossed some threshold. It's the moment they stopped treating trading like a performance and started treating it like a practice. Those two words carry a lot of weight, so let me unpack them. When you treat trading like a performance, every trade is a judgment of your intelligence. Winning means you're smart. Losing means you're failing. You need each trade to go your way, not just for the money, but for your sense of self. And that need, that psychological attachment to the outcome, is what makes you override your rules, chase trades that don't fit your system, and hold losing positions longer than you should, because closing them would mean admitting you were wrong. When you treat trading like a practice, something changes. Losses are no longer failures. They're data. They're the market telling you something about your system, your timing, or your emotional state. A disciplined loss, one taken according to your rules at your predetermined risk level, is not a bad trade. It's a good trade that didn't work out. That's a meaningful distinction. Here's the mindset shift I want you to carry out of this video. The goal of trading is not to be right. The goal of trading is to execute your process correctly, consistently, over time. Let that land for a second. Because once you internalize that, the emotional weight of each individual trade becomes manageable. You're not betting your identity on every candle. You're executing a repeatable process, and you know that if you do that long enough with discipline, the probabilities work in your favor. And this connects to something much bigger than trading. It connects to how you relate to money in general. Most of us were never taught to think about money as a system. We were taught to think about money as a score. You either have it or you don't. You're either winning or you're losing. And that binary, emotionally loaded way of thinking about money makes people do irrational things, not because they're irrational people, but because money is so deeply tied to security, identity, and fear of the future. What scaling a small trading account teaches you, if you do it correctly, is that money responds to process. It doesn't care about desire. It doesn't reward ambition without execution, but it does, over time, compound discipline. And that lesson, that calm, methodical relationship with money, transfers to your savings habits, to how you think about debt, to how you make financial decisions in every other area of your life. The account is almost secondary. The real ROI is in who you become while building it.
All right, let me give you something concrete to walk away with. Not a 10-step framework, not a checklist. Just the honest, practical things that make a real difference. The first thing is to define your risk before you define your strategy. I know that sounds backwards. Everyone wants to talk about entries and setups. But if you don't know exactly how much of your account you're willing to lose on any single trade, and I mean a specific number written down, you're not trading yet. You're gambling with extra steps. Start with 1 to 2% of your account per trade. Keep it there until growing feels boring. Boring is good. Boring is sustainable. The second thing is to keep a trading journal. Not because it sounds responsible, but because it is the single most powerful feedback tool you have access to. Track every trade, entry, exit, size, the setup you saw, and what you were feeling when you placed it. Review it weekly. Patterns emerge that you would never notice in the moment. You'll start to see that most of your worst trades happen at predictable emotional moments, after a string of losses, late in the week when you're tired, or when the market is moving fast and you feel like you're missing something. That awareness alone, knowing when you are most likely to make poor decisions, is worth more than any indicator you'll ever put on a chart. The third thing is to separate the act of growing your account from the act of withdrawing from it. These are two different phases. In the growth phase, you reinvest most of your profits, and you treat the account like a business you're building. You don't pull money out of a business every time it generates revenue if you're trying to scale it. The same logic applies here. Once your account reaches a level that feels stable and meaningful to you, that number is personal and different for everyone, then you can start to extract a portion while still allowing the base to compound. The fourth thing, and this one is about the long game, is to recognize when you're ready for more exposure versus when you're telling yourself a story about being ready. Those are two very different things. You're actually ready to scale up when your process feels routine at the current level, when a loss doesn't make you anxious, when a win doesn't make you overconfident, when you follow your rules not because you're forcing yourself to, but because it's simply what you do. That's the signal, not a specific account balance, not a specific number of trades. The feeling of calm control at the current level. If you're still feeling emotional volatility, excitement, frustration, fear, euphoria around your trading, that's useful information. It means the current level still has things to teach you. Stay there until it doesn't.
I want to leave you with something that I think gets lost in almost every trading conversation. The size of your account right now is not the measure of your potential. It's the starting point of your process. There are people who started with $200 in a trading account and built it into something that genuinely changed their financial trajectory. Not overnight, not through one brilliant trade, through hundreds of ordinary, disciplined decisions made over months and years. Decisions that most people around them would have found boring and unremarkable at the time. That's actually how it works, the accumulation of unremarkable consistency. And I want to be honest with you, it's hard. Not because the concepts are complicated, they're not. The math is simple, the rules are straightforward. It's hard because you're fighting your own psychology every single day. The impatience, the ego, the desire to shortcut a process that genuinely cannot be shortcut. But here's the thing about that fight. Every time you take a disciplined loss and don't chase it, you win that fight. Every time you follow your risk rules when your gut is screaming at you to go bigger, you win that fight. Every time you sit out a trade that doesn't fit your criteria, even though you're frustrated and want to be in the market, you win that fight. And those wins compound too, not just financially, psychologically. You start to build an identity as someone who operates with discipline and intention around money. And that identity is more valuable than any single account balance. So, if you're sitting with a small account right now, feeling like the market is a world that wasn't built for you, I want you to hear this directly. You don't need luck. You need process. You don't need a bigger starting point. You need a better relationship with the starting point you have. And that's always, always available to you, regardless of the number. Start small, stay disciplined, trust the compounding, the financial kind and the personal kind. And remember, progress, no matter how slow it looks from the outside, always beats the perfect plan that never gets started. If this video gave you something to think about, share it with someone who's just getting started in trading. It might be the thing that saves them from the mistakes that cost most traders years of progress. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time. I make videos like this every week because this conversation matters, and I'd love for you to be part of it. Hit the like button on the way out. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need it. I'll see you in the next one.